Hey guys, we're on, and we're back for more punishment. I've got Warwick with me again. Hey, Woz.
Hi. G'day. How are you?
Yeah.
Great.
What's been happening, man?
Not much. Oh, hang on. I have two little munchkins coming in on school holidays. There we go.
Perfect. Say
hi.
Hi.
All right, now say goodbye. This is what's been going on. Oh, okay. I'll be back in 1 second.
That's awesome. That's awesome, hey.
Back in a sec.
That's the perfect start, Woz. And it's all good. So I hope everyone's had an awesome week. I guess for me, the highlight was the 50 watt amp that I built for Jim Root. He received it, so I actually shipped that directly to his home, and it's in his home studio now. And I got some nice feedback from him. He loves it, so that's that was definitely a highlight of the week, and great. I was just super stoked that the amp arrived in one piece, and he likes it, so that's cool.
Oh, is this your Jim Root amp?
Your week, man?
Yeah, God, they're back again. Really good. Just lots of work. Yeah, there we go. Need a huggy.
At the convention center.
This is going great. Children and animals.
Yeah? We'll jump right in with some questions, and we'll give Woz some time to see if he can settle the troops. Yeah, hey Mark, good to see you here again, man. That's awesome. Yeah, that's that was the thumbnail, right, for the live stream. Was just just took a quick picture of an Alta 100 that just finishing off. It's bound for the US, that one. So if you're not familiar with how we're doing that at the moment, what we're doing is all of the US orders for the Altas, and look, the majority are going there, right? Like 75% easy of sales are in North America, mainly US, some Canadian. And so we're building the amps here, like complete all the way, even set at 120 volts, right? And then I'm shipping that completed chassis with no tubes in it, right? Pull the tubes out, no head cap. And so we can ship it kind of like, it's pretty durable that way, right? Nothing kind of fragile. And it gets shipped to my great buddy and business partner, Shay, from Monomyth Amps in Indiana. And Shay does final checks for us, tubes it, biases it, runs it at 120 wall voltage, mounts it in the head cabs, which I have ordered and stored at his facility. And so, yeah, that arrangement's working really, really well. And I'm deeply, deeply grateful for the help that Shay's giving us on that. So, yeah, man, I've worked pretty hard. There's a few different revisions to the amp. No circuit changes, but there's been some revisions in terms of kind of build method, if you like, just to make it kind of more efficient to build. So what you're seeing in that photo is obviously the latest version. And if there's any interest in seeing some more detailed gut shots of the amp, I'm happy to post them. I kind of haven't really yet, but there's been enough time gone by that I'm not that precious about it anymore. Terry's got one, so man, that's cool. If you're wondering about jumping on, just send me an email. Here's an interesting one, Woz. So Ben, I saw your question during the week, man, and so we do have a bunch of chats. A bunch of questions from threads and so on that are in the DIY builders group, and also questions that were posted on the YouTube channel. So as we go through these live questions, we probably jump to a few of those as well. But Ben did ask this question through the week, and I'll be interested in your views on this. So Ben is looking for a kind of a 101 soldering video, or kind of class or whatever. And it's true, man, because mostly I kind of jump over all that stuff and try to think about, what are the more, maybe not complex, but what are some of the things that I could cover in a video that perhaps haven't been covered before. But if there's genuine interest in doing something like this, then yeah, you know.
Yeah, it's the thing that holds the whole thing together, I guess.
How did you get taught, man? Because I was a bit of sort of, you know, I just learned the ropes.
I got
learned myself, really.
After I left uni, I did TAFE for a little while. There was some soldering classes there, and then when I did my apprenticeship, my amp apprenticeship, he kind of showed me other ways and other techniques. Just got to have good iron, really. Good iron, good solder. Keep it all clean. I do have some flux in a little syringe that I put on things as well when things aren't really going my way that day. I'll put a little bit of flux on there, and that usually gets me where a nice shiny.
Do you use that? Because someone commented on one of the videos about like the SC20, the JCM 800 2204 style mini amp studio series, which I posted a video on. One of the things that I had to do for that mod was to pull out one of the existing PCB mount pots. And they're not the easiest things to get out, right? Because you've got the 3 pins, obviously, for the pot, but also 2 kind of bracket pins that are soldered into the PCB as well. I've got a desoldering gun, you know, so that's pretty easy for me, right? Because like it's a gun with a suction thing on it, right? But if you didn't have one of those, it would be a bit of a chore to get out. A few people actually posted comments on that video suggesting the use of a flux syringe to actually get the components out. I've never actually tried that.
The syringe I've got is to add flux. Yeah. Usually I just use a wick. Like if I don't have a gun available, I'll use just a wick and a decent solder sucker. But the solder sucker has to be a good, like the old spring-loaded pump ones. Like
yeah. I know the ones.
This old guy.
Oh yeah.
You should have one of those.
Yeah, I use one all the time.
You've got to be careful that you're not too butch with it, especially on crap PCBs. And then wick as well. I've usually
because it'll lift the traces.
Yeah. They're a bit brutal if you don't do it nicely. But then get yourself some good old solder wick as well. That's always good stuff. I use a combination of the both usually to pull stuff out. And it also depends when I'm pulling things off PCBs, if I'm concerned about that component and reusing it. If I'm not concerned about that component, I'll usually just cut the legs and stuff like that. And then just pull pin out, like if it's a pot, I'll just get cutters, cut the bottom and then just pull things out. So it's less intrusive, but it's hard pulling out. I had to pull out actually. We've got some Shure Axient wireless chargers, and the pins on that.
Yep.
I was with our systems people yesterday, and that's a nightmare because the actual component goes down through one PCB, curls around, and then comes up to another one. It's like getting that out is a nightmare. But just you got to have a good for soldering tips. Like soldering's not boring. Like so many people do it wrong. It's ridiculous. Just you got to have a good iron. Use good solder. Make sure everything's clean, and play with your iron to get the right temperature.
This is a. I just had an idea, mate. I should come over with my camera and we'll do a video at your bench.
Okay.
You can show me, you can show me how to do it too. Yeah, cool. Question here from Aquila Rosa. So I know you're in New Zealand. I know that. Marshall style recording preamp, should it somehow include a phase inverter? Because an overdriven phase inverter is a big part of the sound. Yeah, interesting question.
Well, technically your phase inverter would be in the power amp then. So
yeah, correct. Like guys, the reason you have a phase inverter is because it needs to feed a push-pull power amp. So if you've got like 2 power tubes, it's like EL34s in this case, for example, in a Marshall, or 4, they run in push-pull configuration. The phase inverter's job is to feed those with an out-of-phase signal. So you never need one in a preamp. But
I hear what he's saying though.
Yeah, interesting question, right? How do you simulate the overdrive characteristics of a phase inverter without it being a phase inverter? That's probably the question. I think that's what anyone who's tried to deliver the sound and feel of an overdriven plexi in a preamp only is searching for that.
Yeah.
Which is everybody.
Yes.
Right? In modern day master volume amps.
Yeah.
Well,
That is the trick.
yeah. So I don't think there's no one kind of magic bullet answer to that, because you can kind of emulate those characteristics through, across multiple gain stages, and it's all about how you're voicing and designing your amp. And I think that's the holy grail that a lot of people are searching for. Yeah.
Yes. Unfortunately, a lot of that comes down to volume as well. Like, because a lot of that tone isn't just amplifier breaking up; it's your speakers losing their plot as well. A lot of that
Yeah.
comes from your speaker.
Yep.
But yeah, I see what he's saying. Yeah, you do miss something in that phase inverter distorting. I don't know. I wonder, how do they do it in the Synergy? Like, do they have anything in there afterwards, or do they just kind of
They
built it
do.
in? Yeah.
So it'd be a good question for Dave if Dave makes it onto the stream. He did message me saying that he's busy with another podcast, so he may or may not jump on briefly. But my memory of the Synergies, because I've had a quick look at it, they do have. I'm pretty sure they've got another preamp tube in the head
Unit.
right?
Yeah.
So you got the module, obviously, and they have two 12AX7s in them configured, however, and then you've kind of got another stage that's sitting there in the head that can be used as part of the overall characteristics. Yeah, I'm not sure exactly how it's configured up, but I'm pretty sure that's the case. And there's obviously in the Synergy heads, there's obviously a phase inverter tube, because they are powered. They have like 5881s, I think. There's Sovtech 5881s in them.
Yeah.
Pretty sure. I'm not familiar with this album. I'm assuming album, XYZ's Hungry Guitar Tone. So the question is, guys, I want to build a project amp and get as close to the aggressiveness of XYZ's Hungry Guitar Tone. Where would you suggest I start? It was recorded through a Morin preamp. Any ideas, Was? I'm not familiar with this.
No ideas, actually. It's been a long time since I've listened to XYZ. A long time. I don't know. Start with a Marshall and go from there, I guess. Like,
I would have thought so. If I can remember, I'll might look up that Morin preamp and see what it looks like. It's I'll be completely guessing, but would suggest that it's probably a 2203, 2204 front end, maybe. I have no idea.
I couldn't help you there. I'm sorry.
Cheers from Canada. Does your pal have a YouTube channel? Can you just let me know?
Or would that...
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe.
No.
I'm not sure which pal you're talking about. So if it's Warwicke, Warwicke can answer the question. Perhaps you were referring to Shay. Shay Morland from Monomyth, who I mentioned right at the beginning. That's possible. He does. You can look up Monomyth amplification. Doesn't post on there too much, old Shay, but the channel's up and he's got videos of his stuff up on there. Question here. Hi, Jason. Do you prefer relays or FETs for switching cathode resistor values in a preamp? Yeah. Where I have done it, I've done it with relays, and I've done it with relays because I wanted to have it remote switchable. I do this in the Alta 100, vintage modern voicing. It's doing a few things, but one of the things it's doing is switching cathodes, and that's done with a relay. And the issue with this, guys, is that when you change the cathode resistor on a triode, even with a mini switch on the front of the amp, you'll get a massive pop. Little through your cab, right? Because you're switching DC. Anytime you switch DC on an audio signal, you'll get a really loud pop. So this is where you can kind of like set it up as a set and forget style switch, and that's cool, right? So a lot of amps do that, where you have like a gain setting or whatever, and you can kind of, often it's switching cathodes, and you'll hear the switch make a pop through your speakers. So it's not something you kind of switch on the fly when you're playing, or you get into a mute circuits. All right, so if you want to have a switchable cathode resistor in real time as part of like a gain boost when you're playing, you really need to have a mute circuit that will mute the audio in the amp for a split second to hide that pop, which is what I do in the alto. Oh, Ben, yeah. Actually, I remember now. Ben says, as a digital guy, all in capital letters, the alto rules. You're the guy that always posts the comments about tubes being obsolete. I remember you now. But then you always end up saying, yeah, I'm just kidding. So I don't know. I don't actually know where you sit on this. Marco, hey man, good to see you here. How's that 74 going? Marco is the guy that owns the 74 non-master volume JMP that I worked on a couple of weeks ago.
Oh, the one that you said was kind of magic. Yeah,
pretty awesome.
Yeah, lovely.
I think you'd worked on that amp at some point. Pretty
really?
sure that was a history I was given. Yeah, absolutely. You would have seen it. I'm pretty sure.
Okay.
Yep. Anthony DeVito's asking, what is this club secret amp design? Come on, spill the beans. So there was a little teaser that Shay posted on his Instagram. Back to Shay at Monomyth Amps, who I work with. As I said, he's my business partner in the States. Yeah, he posted this thing. We are working on a collaboration. So we're hoping to kind of release some more information about that. Hopefully I can get Shay onto one of these streams. So if he can kind of make himself available next Thursday night, we'll have him on and we can talk a bit more about what that's all about. Here's an interesting comment from Justin. He says, for anyone this is news to me, for anyone who has thought of buying an Origin to do one of Jason's excellent mods, the heads have been discontinued. Wow. Combo will still be available. Heads are currently discounted as a result. Wow. I wonder why. I thought they were selling heaps of those.
Yeah, so isn't that the Marshall way? Something's going good, stop it.
We've got new owners now, right?
Yes, exactly. Oh, so there's no Bluetooth in it, I guess.
They just checked to see whether it was one of the lifestyle products, and then decided if it wasn't, they would cancel it. I have no idea. That's news to me. Disappointing, really, because I think the Origins stock they're ordinary, right? But they can be converted to something pretty cool.
It's an affordable, decent little amp.
Yeah, and the 50 watters too, man. The 50 watters are pretty cool. I mean, the power section is a genuine, pretty genuine 50 watt amp. I wonder if it's because because they've just released that JTM 45 Studio series.
Okay.
I wonder whether they're just like, in terms of their small head lineup, they're just going to go Studio series only. I don't know. But that's well, I heard it here first, so there you go. Yeah, Ben, everyone hit the like button. Yeah, man. Helps these YouTube amp followers. Alex is here. Hey, man. Good to see you. Interesting question here from Shredding 51. I bought a used JCM 800 414 size 4104. Do you know what circuit that was?
Not off the top of my head.
No, me neither. Let me look it up, because someone listened to my rant last week about.
Yeah, exactly. Biting you in the ass.
JCM 800s.
All right, so it's the preamp.
Okay.
It's 10 past 7.
This is a 50 watt 1x12. It's a 2204.
Okay.
Pretty much. 2x12, yeah. And may have had that little that might be the model that has that little extra cap on the mid pot. But other than that, it's a completely stock 2204. So Shredding goes on to say, when the preamp gets turned down below 7, it loses all the bass and is thin. Tubes have been changed and biased correctly. 7 to 10 sounds good. Thanks. Yeah, I've done numerous videos on this, which is this is all about the bright cap. Unless there's something else wrong with your amp, and I'm assuming that there's not. But I've had a lot of people that have bought amps in here for me to service or work on or mod or whatever, and they say the same thing. Oh, when I turn the, they say, oh, the amp's really thin and brittle. So I say, how do you set it up? And they show me, and they have the preamp down at like 3 or 4 of 10.
Yep.
The bright cap's taking over. Those have a pretty gnarly. It's 1 nanofarad bright cap. It's not as big or as aggressive as the old Plexis, but funnily enough, they're actually harsher, because I think that when you get to 4700 picofarad, you've actually got so much mid range and
you're letting more mids in.
That's right. So it doesn't sound as kind of
bitey top end.
Yeah. Whereas those 2203, 2204 circuits, that bright cap is, you got to have the amp at 7 for it to sound good. So I would run it like that. That's how I set them up, 100%. If it's still like, if you want lower gain than that, and you really want to hang on to that amp, then you could make the bright cap maybe switchable, put it on a push-pull pot, so you don't have to drill into the amp.
Turn the volume down on your guitar.
Yeah.
Or you can use, do stuff, use a graphic to pull the volume down and shape it if you want as well. There's plenty of things you can do. Or just don't turn it past 7. Like get something and wipe out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Get rid of those numbers. Don't exist. Amp modded. Rock it.
That's a Spinal Tap moment right there.
Absolutely.
Okay. That's why you're on here. It's bloody great.
Comic relief. Okay.
Yeah. Carson says, this is in relation to the comment about, or the conversation we're having about soldering. What iron? I've used the same Heiko for 20 years. Yeah, they're great irons. Yeah.
Same.
Can't go wrong with that.
I've had my Heiko forever.
Yeah.
They're great.
Yeah. Matt says a good iron and tips are nearly mandatory. The best under $100 iron I know of is the Heiko FX 600. And a set of tips. Yeah, 60-40 Kester leaded solder wick and decent. That's all you need, man.
Yep, absolutely.
Yep. Don't make the mistake of getting unleaded solder. I know people freak out about the lead, but it's just not workable.
Yeah.
I've invested in a decent not air circulation, but kind of air
extraction.
Extraction. That's what I'm looking for. Thanks, Woz.
All right.
Unit, yeah, and it's made a world of difference actually.
Yep.
Yeah, because it is a bit that Kester solder. That's what I use. It's pretty fumy.
Yep. Yes.
Yeah, it's pretty full on. So if you have make sure you got a well ventilated.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. So Ben's just commenting again. Yeah, let's do that. Let's do that video. Okay. This is Aaron's gone on and said about the phase inverter direct into a transformer for a DI out with feedback. Yeah, this is in reference to the, can we have a phase inverter tube and a preamp to emulate phase inverter overdrive? So could you have the phase inverter driving a transformer? I guess so.
I don't know. Design it. Try it.
Yeah, interesting question. You could. Yeah, you could have that would be interesting actually. Let me know how you go. I'd love to know.
Yeah. Good luck. Like you could even go nuts. You could even, take a couple of 12AU7s and set them up as like a little power amp and load it down if you want. Like you can do all kind of things in a preamp. Just depends on what you want to do. But you can go nuts. You build a
Yeah.
reactive load in there, get the whole thing going. But build it. I'm not going to.
That's an interesting. Look, I get the odd request for preamp stuff. Not that common actually. A few people have asked for preamp style DIY boards, which would be easy enough to do. I mean, I could take some of the boards that I've got and just remove the, everything from the phase inverter down, I guess.
Yep.
But doesn't seem to be enough demand for it to really kind of make it worthwhile. But I'm happy to be convinced otherwise. Yeah, Ben. So the digital guy. Yeah. See, we're going to convert you to tubes, Ben. Just one live stream at a time. Alex says, "Is it a great time to bring up the SLO chat?" Yeah, man. What you want to talk about SLOs? Go for it. Carson says, "Do you think the master volume colors the output of the amp? It has to be a small low pass filter." What do you think?
Which master volume?
Mm.
They all sound different, and everything changes the color of an amp, to the tubes, to the everything. How hot it is outside, like it will change how your amp sounds. It's just finding a balance that works with you, I guess. And depends on what master volume you're picking, and how you're using it. Like I find most master volumes for me only work good, especially post. I haven't tried that one that you guys were talking about last week yet, but I find master volumes work good only like a couple of clicks down. But it really depends on the amp and whatever. But all I know is that anything you do will color it. So you just got to choose things that will color it in a way that you like.
It's true. I mean, I have to quote Dave here, right? But it depends.
Depends. Yeah.
Well, like that. If that master volume is creating some kind of filtering effect, right? Depending on obviously what's surrounding it, that actually might be desirable in the amp for that player at that point in time. So it's hard to know. Ben says again, 44 watching, only 17 likes. Come on, hit the like button. Good idea. Michael Torin. Hey, Mike. We should have known, man. I should have just said straight away. Question about a rack. It's modded Marshall. There you go. Any more details on that, Mike? I wonder if it's like a 2204 style front end or something like that.
It's something
I'm sure you've got one.
Don't think I've ever seen one over here or down here in Australia. I saw plenty of Lee Jacksons sort of make their way over, and all the other preamps. Never saw.
Here we go. Michael goes on to say there is a schematic online and it has the correct architecture, but I can't confirm the component values due to goop. Oh my God.
Love the goop.
Was it modded by Mark Cameron? Oh, man. Yeah. Matt says gooping. Now there's a subject.
Yes.
I think I've only had that one amp. Anyone watches the channel might have seen that that Mark Cameron modded JMP that I had on the bench. It would have started life as a non-master volume JMP, but it ended up a long way from that. Thankfully, someone had scratched most of the goop out. But yeah, man, what a nightmare.
Yes.
Marco says, so this is Marco I mentioned is the owner of that 100-watt 74 non-master volume JMP, and he runs it with no attenuator, man. I will say this. I asked you about this, Marco. I said, because you had a master volume 2203 100-watt as well in the 70s. And I asked you how you ran it, and you showed me, and you put the master volume on 8. Thankfully, the amp wasn't turned on. And you said, I run it like this.
Perfect.
And I said, but dude, man, that's going to, like, yeah. And you said, no attenuator.
Perfect.
So
right answer.
Yeah, but he puts the cab in another room, you see. So would I. Yeah, so man, that just back to that non-master volume JMP that you worked on. I think you recapped it was recapped
Really?
in the 90s. Yeah. It had FNTs in it all the way around.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Did I do anything else? Was it horrible inside, or was it okay?
No, man.
can't remember.
It was, you know what the thing that I do remember about that amp is it had you had added, well, maybe someone had added, but it had a master volume added. But it had, what was interesting about it is that the additional wiring that was needed for that master volume was original pink Marshall wiring.
Oh, okay.
Which you never see, right? I mean, normally that's just kind of what
That could be the kind of stupid thing I do. I do.
You've got a stash of original pink Marshall wire, right?
Yeah, well, there's bits, and also like from the years when people have asked to do stupid mods, I keep the wire.
Yeah, me too. Any old stuff like that, I keep. Yeah,
got a bag full of it.
Yeah,
I always keep stuff. I'm a hoarder, and especially for that stuff, it always, always comes in use down the line. But yeah, if a master had been added and there's original wiring, that was probably me.
Oh man, 100%. It's cool. Adam says this is in reference to the switching the cathode on a gain stage. Yes. So Adam says, do you still get the pop when switching an additional resistor in parallel with a fixed cathode? Yes. So this is a huge tuning opportunity though, guys, right? So one of the most common things you'll see in a bunch of amps, old and modern, is some sort of, gain switch or maybe voice in switch or something like that. And if you flick it and you hear it kind of a popping, then the chances are it's doing this. And it'll always be, well, almost always they will just be switching an additional resistor in parallel with the stock value. So in a 2203, 2204, one of the biggest opportunities you can leverage to change the gain characteristics is that 10K cathode, the cold clipper, second gain stage. I've done this on the channel a bunch of times, right? Like put a 4K7 in parallel with that, or another 10K in parallel with it, or whatever, and put it on a switch, and you can move it back and forward. It'll pop, but what you'll get is it'll almost sound like two different amps.
Yep.
You get so much more gain out of it by changing that 10K. Huge gain tweaking opportunity there. Yeah, Alex says that the Origins are going to be available at IKEA as a flat pack. Well, the head cabs are about as, look like they probably came from IKEA.
Yeah.
Yeah, Matt says, I don't get the Marshall Studio series. It's a total gimmick to use EL34s at 200 volts. Yeah. Plate voltage on those is about 270, I think, from memory. But yeah, cathode bias EL34s at 270 volts, whatever. There's a whole bunch of other tubes that they could have and probably should have used. It's a marketing.
Absolutely.
EL34 amp.
Yep. Marshall sound, blah, 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 blah. Absolutely.
Yeah, 100%. So the question from Cuckoo Gear Cook was the question was, do you have a YouTube channel? It was you, Warwick.
Oh, there you go. I do under my old company Tone Revival. But I don't post anything on it anymore. I think there might be a chat with you and somebody, maybe
Scotty.
Scott. Yeah, it was Scott Kinman. And then I think I did another one with maybe Dave Leslie.
Yes, you did do one with Dave.
Was it Dave Leslie and maybe my mate Zach or someone? I can't remember. But there was a couple during COVID I did. I think there was like a how to solder a guitar lead. I don't do a lot of YouTube stuff because I'm not really a video guy set up for it. And my life is insane with the amount of work and touring and stuff I do now. So unfortunately, I don't. This is the only time I get to do this sort of stuff. So I'll live through Jason.
I'm very happy that you're here. But the thing about the live stuff, well, there's no editing. This is the thing.
That's why I did that. Yeah.
Anyone who's tried to do any kind of YouTube stuff will know that the editing part is just, it takes ages to put something together that's kind of coherent and you know, that you might be happy enough to release. The filming bit is the easiest bit. The editing, pain in the ass.
Absolutely.
You get better at it, of course, the more you do it, but nonetheless.
But then when do we have time to fix amps and build them?
Well, this is it, right? So, Burke himself, super chat. Thank you so much, man. Woohoo! To cut treble after a hard cold clipper, do you put a 4N7 on the treble knob? This is a 2203X.
On the treble, like the feed to the treble to ground, you'd be killing a lot of mids. Is that what you're saying? To cut treble?
Yeah, especially a 4N7's a pretty...
It's a big value.
That's a big value. You can... yeah, you can actually do this, right? So this is a little trick that I learned from Dave, actually.
Yeah.
I'll give Dave full credit for this. But if you're talking about, if you're wanting to attenuate high end in that part of the circuit, so like literally kind of pre-EQ, then you can run a cap off that. You know, there's a 100K cathode resistor there, right? Which is the cathode follower, and that's feeding the tone stack. You can put a cap to ground there. But I wouldn't, 2N2 even is going to cut heaps of top end.
Yeah, you'd put a 470 puff in there.
Yes.
That's the value if you're going to do that.
100%.
Yeah, you'd be throwing away with a 4N7 so much of your mid.
Yep.
Yeah.
The other thing you can try, and I've shown this a couple of times on the channel, is that you can try it in that position or try it. So normally in that, in a kind of, we're talking about a 2203, right? So on V2, you obviously have, you'll have a gain stage coupled to that cathode follower. So you've actually got a 100K plate resistor on V2A and then a 100K cathode on V2B. You can put a plate snubber across that 100K plate resistor on V2A as well, or like put it up on the 100K cathode follower, or up on the 100K plate on the stage before it. See which one you like the best. They both have both. You can do both. Yeah. Generally, I do like to attenuate high end later in the preamp. If you do it too early, you lose out on some nice harmonic distortion and stuff. I think
clarity, absolutely. It turns, if you wipe out top end earlier in the circuit in a distortion circuit, it starts turning into a little bit more of a fuzz. I find, like the notes are rounder.
Yeah, 100%. Question here from Aaron again says, on the question of the Studio Series amp, so there's our Marshall, SC, SV20s and so on. Is there any value for EL34s sub 400 for a non-variac tone, or are EL84s or 6v6s fine? Yeah, look, you could probably, if you think about the JMP era 2204s in the very late 70s, just before the JCM 800 series was launched, they had a low plate voltage. They were about 380, 390 with the EL34s and them in fixed bias. And they're quite sought after. Some people don't like those because they find them a bit kind of, I don't know, maybe a bit spongy or whatever. But there is a lot of people out there that love those amps because they're probably more like a 30 watt amp, maybe.
Yeah, they get going at a lower volume.
Yeah, so that's, you yeah, you could sit there and they'd be okay. I have done quite a few amps with 6v6s. I use the JJ 6v6S tube, which is, you can run pretty high voltages in those. You can have like a screen and plate voltage up at 450.
Yep.
And they're pretty awesome, actually. I do like them in a kind of 25
That's my
watt.
favorite JJ tube.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Cool. That right at the top of that amp stack there, right, that little amp up there, that's a Sir PT15.
Oh, yeah.
And it's got those.
Yep.
That's the one with the built-in attenuator and IR loader and stuff. Yeah, that's got the 6v6. They're branded as ARS, but they're actually JJ 6v6S tubes. And that amp, they call it a 15-watt amp, but it's running at like 420 volts on the plates or whatever. It easily does 20 to 25 watts.
Yeah.
Carson says, do you know anything about G&I pedals? I'm in Texas and can't find an Octafuzz anywhere except Brazil. No, I've never heard of G&I pedals. Warwick, you?
No, sorry.
Don't know.
Octafuzz, yeah.
Make one. Yeah, I saw Joe Barisi just on his Instagram feed posted about a new Way Huge. I'm assuming it's new Way Huge pedal. So check that out. Go and look up Joe Barisi on Instagram, and he's posted, and I think it's an Octafuzz something or other, right? So, and he says it.
If I tell you, we've got a pedal builder here in Melbourne, Australia. Sean Klinger.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm. He built for Diesel a custom Octafuzz pedal that is sensational. He builds really, really lovely pedals. There's some really good pedal builders here. Him and what's his buddy? Dazatronics. The two of them build really good stuff. Maybe look at some of Sean's stuff to represent Australia. But yeah, I'm sure you can find something. There'll be someone making Octafuzz.
Look who's here.
Shit, I'm back.
Hey.
Hi.
And the phone rings, of course.
Of course it does.
That's all right. I had my kids fucking jumping all over me at the start of this one, so it's all good.
Yeah, I was doing some other podcast thing and I thought I'd pop in. I don't really have very long, but I thought
that's good, man. It's nice to see you here.
Pop in for a second.
Yeah, everyone'd be happy to see you. So, man, what's been happening?
I don't know. What's been happening here?
You've been put a teaser out for the new product launch that's getting a lot of people guessing.
Yes, they can guess away. And then we're gonna do a live Tone Talk on release day. By then, people will have seen videos.
Okay.
But then we'll have the new product with us, and it'll.
And you're with Michael. You're gonna have Michael Nielsen and
Mark and myself. Yeah.
Cool. Is Michael gonna will he actually demo and play a bit and stuff like that?
Yes.
Yeah. Awesome.
So if it all works, yeah. I mean, not the product, if the stream works, right?
Oh, I know. Yeah. Look, well,
it should.
I'm sure Michael can.
No. Yeah, it's really simple. It's one will be the mic and one will be the unit, and it processes 2 inputs, so it should be fine.
Awesome.
You'll wear headphones for it, so
yeah,
turn all the crap off.
That'll be the way to do it for sure.
Yeah, you have to turn all that stuff off to play any sort of audio through anything.
Yes, I have actually played with this. You've got to turn the echo cancellation off in StreamYard, right? Otherwise,
and the auto level stuff too. Yeah, I turn that all off.
Yeah,
wear headphones. Then it works.
Oh yeah, totally.
Yeah,
that'd be cool. Yeah. So is that at the regular time? You're doing that on a Friday night?
We're gonna do it at 5 p.m. on Tone Talk. Mostly is gonna be at 5 p.m. from now on whatever night we do it. We found that I don't know, the time frame works better for a lot of people. 5 p.m. my time, God knows.
Yeah.
Was that 9 a.m. your time or something?
It's 10
10?
At the moment at 10 a.m. until the daylight saving changes and all that. It's 10 a.m. So yeah, it's a good time for me. It's better for Mark too, right? It doesn't get too late in the night, I guess.
Yeah, he's not falling asleep halfway through the show. So yeah,
I have noticed this.
That he gets a little tired towards some of those.
Well,
I don't necessarily blame him.
He's had a full day or full week of work.
I don't blame him. But the 4-hour shows are really taxing on him.
Oh yeah, I don't think you've
1 a.m. he would be finishing. It's like
what was the last 4-hour show? Probably not the Jakey Lee one,
no, I don't think that was the last one. 4 hours. That's a good question. I don't know. I don't think we've done one in a while. We've been trying to keep it down to some reasonable period of time, like 2 hours, 2.5 hours, something that's more sensible. Yeah,
it's still a long time, isn't
it? Sometimes it flows so well, you don't even know what time it is. You look up and you're like, oh, it's been 2.5 hours, and boy, I feel like we haven't even touched on anything yet. Like there's so much more to ask.
Totally.
Yeah. Like when I did those 4-hour shows with John Sir and stuff, I think we did a couple 4-hour shows with them.
Yeah, there were two.
That just kept going, flowed super easy, and the Jake show too.
The John Sir shows were really, really good. Just so much history there, like and he went into it like in detail, which was great.
Yeah,
very good. Yeah,
for sure.
For sure. So, Dave, we've been getting a good flow of questions here, mainly about old Marshalls and stuff. One of the pieces in your favorite topic for sure. One of the pieces of news that I wasn't aware of was someone said that Marshall have discontinued the Origin heads. Have you heard this?
No, I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised.
Just gonna continue with the combos only.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
It probably didn't sell for them. I mean, come on. It kind of wasn't very good.
No.
But they did, the funny thing is they did so well with the 20-watt series, the other ones, the made in the UK ones. Mm-hmm.
Maybe that's what they're gonna focus on, right? Close down those Origin heads and just kind of keep the Studio series open as the
now if they discontinue the Studio series, they're just downright stupid.
Yeah, I don't think that. Well, they just released that JTM 45 thing, right? Something looks like they're all
that thing looks cool.
Yeah, I haven't seen one on the face.
I've seen it in person, and I'm like, man, it's so cool. I want one.
How did you think it sounded?
I think it sounds, it sounds like, it's this. I mean, it's the same. It's exactly the same as the other 20-watt amps, except this one had, I think it has a tube rectifier. Does it? Wait, I can't remember. Just the front end's changed, to be a JTM 45. Same thing, which it works well,
It's that same cathode bias EL34.
Yeah, this works well. Those sound great. I put a Jose mod on the SV20 recently. Like with a whole nother tube, everything.
Really?
And man,
where did you stick it? Where did you put?
There's room. There's totally room in there next between the backboard and the front board, right in the back there. You just stuck a tube right there that's wide open. Just drill a hole through the chassis and put a tube in and power it off the DC that's already there, which actually sags the DC a little bit, which you can compensate for. But I found when I compensated for that, it didn't sound as good. So I went with the sagged voltage. Wow. Sounded more variact. Sounded better.
That's really interesting. Man, I like that. Look at that, Em. That sounds fascinating.
Yeah, and then what I did interesting though, I kind of left the so in that amp, you worked on one of those, right?
Yeah, I've done a couple of them. Yeah.
So in that amp, the first cathode of the bright channel is an 820 ohm. Yeah. Right. I left it.
Okay.
Because I listen to the difference between the normal Jose gain stage going into that versus the 2.7, and the 820 was better, just better.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
So did you have it so you could still blend?
Yeah.
You could still do a normal and triple channel blend.
Yeah, I was the same. I made that permanently tied. I just tied the bass channel input jacks went away, and I internally just across the tube socket tied the input grids, so you can just at will blend. But if it's at 0, you're not,
Yeah. I'm still trying to picture how you mounted that bloody tube socket, because there's no sidewall in those chassis either, right?
No, it's just so if you're looking into the amp and the controls, the input jacks are over on your left, just straight. There's a space between the back output board and the front board. There's a wide open space. It's like wide
so
open.
you just top mounted it like a normal
Yeah,
socket.
just drilled a hole in the chassis. Done. Screwed it in.
I love it.
I wish I had a picture of that too. I did something really neat with the. A lot of times I'll use like a terminal strip or something to mount parts to and stuff. But there's these new things that CE Distribution has that are these little like fancy. I don't know if you've seen them, little turret things that you can mount in the corner of the tube socket. So it's you'd have to pull it up. It's hard to explain. It looks
like a tag strip kind of thing.
Tag strip, but it has one hole for mounting, right? It's like a turret, actually turrets. And the cool thing is, so I put the screw through and put a screw to standoff to it, so it sits over the tube socket, and then you can run parts from the turrets right down into the tube sockets, and it was slick as hell. Because I saw him on CE, and I was like, I can use those for something. Let me get some of those. I'll use, I'll figure it out. And I didn't know that's what I was going to do. When I started doing this, though, I'm like going, how's this going to mount? Where's it? And then I'm like, well, wait, if I put a standoff, I can just mount it right over the tube socket, and the parts will drop right into the tube, and it's like perfect, And
that's awesome.
And that worked out really well.
Yeah, this is why doing mods is still fun, right? Because you do end up breaking new ground every time.
Oh yeah, because you don't, so you're working with something you're not familiar with or something, and you have to modify this amp, right, to make it sound good, and then it doesn't sound good when you first mod it, and you're like, okay, well, let's try this, let's try that, and let's try this, and oh, there it is, we got it, and that's that's the fun of it. That's called research and development.
Absolutely.
Yes.
On the mod.
I like the what was that show? MacGyver?
Yeah.
MacGyvering you got to do to get things to work.
Yeah, because you sometimes really have to MacGyver stuff together to make to make it work. And it's never quite as neat as you'd like it to be.
Yeah, never.
You try as neat as you can, but it's never quite. The second time you do it, it gets neater.
I was gonna say, this is the thing about breaking ground with the first time. You kind of you'll get the circuit right, but maybe you go about it a different way the second time, and then you do, right? You get the chance to do it the second time, and you're like, it's a bit tidier always.
Yeah, and that Jose thing, I do it so that there's one input jack, and then when you push pull that extra gain pot, it's taking the whole gain stage in and out completely, as opposed to the archaic way that he had done it originally. And that doesn't quite work that well. And it just works better. And so then, you want a plexi, and just turn your master on 10, and there you go. You still have your plexi,
Where did you put that? You had the master. Did you add a master volume as well? You must have. Yeah.
So I moved the pilot light over. I took the pilot light out and moved that on the the other side of the power switch. Drilled a hole. There's enough room to do that. Very similar to what he would
just like the old days. Yeah,
and just use the hole for the master, and it was great. Worked fine.
There you go.
Yeah, it was fun. It actually came out really good, actually. So I was like, wow, this is really cool, actually.
And you just used one triode in that extra gain stage. You didn't parallel it up or anything like that.
No, because it wasn't going to be a super high gain one. It was just going to be that. And I used the 001 to ground off the the first plate cap.
Okay.
Like you do sometimes, and because 0022 was too dark and kind of weird, and then like it needs a little brighter. Sometimes I like it without. It depends on the amp.
You don't often parallel that triode, do you? In the
don't really like it ever.
Yeah, you find it a bit kind of bloated.
It's hard to explain. Every time I've A/B'd something like that, even the Vi amps, they originally had them
because that was paralleled, wasn't it?
It was originally paralleled, but one of them was a solder connection was cracked, so it was unparalleled.
Oh, really?
And I wound up leaving it unparalleled because it just sounded better. I thought, I don't like paralleling it that much. It's almost too much.
Well, I've got some good ideas from the next SV20 that I might get my hands on.
That's cool. But I was surprised that 820 stage worked out better.
Yeah, that's interesting too.
Sounded just a little more alive, just a little bit better. So definitely gave it more gain for sure.
Yeah, it would, and didn't get too fuzzy.
And then I can't remember. I think I can't remember. I think I just left a 0.68 in the cathode follower stage. I think I left that. I might have done something to cut a little top end because those amps can be a little brash.
Yeah. We were just talking about that before, actually.
Yeah, but I mean, for generally in the plexi mode, I just use the one across the cathode resistor of the EQ, it just rolls on just enough, that 500 picofarad just rolls just enough where it just sweetens up the top a little bit.
That sounds awesome. There's a question here about the Alta actually MIDI switching. 40 millisecond mute circuit default. Yes, that's correct. You can change it. Yeah, it's if you send the amp a MIDI change control message 105, and the parameter that you add to that message is the millisecond that you want. If you set it to 0, it's turned off completely, and you can go all the way up to 127 if you want. So you can just configure that yourself.
If you want it to be a mute switch, like really a mute.
Yeah.
On a guitar.
127's a bit, it's
a little bit much.
Too much, right? So I find it depends on your setup, right? The rig you're in as well. But 50 works pretty well, and it's fast enough that you don't really kind of notice it. What else we got here, guys? This is this was in response to. So, Dave, there was a question here. So, a 4104, I had to look it up because I couldn't remember.
I can never remember.
No,
Marshall and their numbers. I'm just like, wait, what? Yeah. Which one is that again?
Yeah. So this is it's the 2204, but in a 2x12 combo.
Mm-hmm.
And it would have had I'm pretty sure that's the one that had that extra cap on the mid pot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I forget what that cap is, and then you try to find it on a schematic somewhere, and it doesn't exist.
It's impossible to find it. Yeah. The original comment was, when I turn the preamp below 7, it gets all harsh and thin, which
bright cap on the pot.
Yeah, correct. Led to a long conversation about 1 nanofarad bright cap, and I said, interestingly, someone also said this 1 nanofarad bright cap is like being kicked in the nuts.
In the nuts.
if you're especially if you're playing it low, for sure.
If you've got it below 7,
a little bit brutal. I don't think that's a good sound at all.
No. So I think
which is why you put in three-way switch that we talked about this before, that goes 100 picofarad, which is, I find, just nice if you just want a little bit of brightness all the way down, and then whatever the other cap value you want is 0047, 001, whatever.
Yeah.
Whatever, 0022, 33, whatever you like, really. How far into the mid range do you want to get?
Well, this is it. We talked a bit, Dave, of course, about how if you go up to 4700, then you're starting to get. I mean, bizarrely, it's actually not as harsh because you've got more mids coming through.
Right. Totally. And the other thing I've noticed too, when you have like a JMP or a JSAM 800 master volume amp, right? Cool sounding amp. But I often find I'm turning bass down, turning mids up, right? And of course, you keep the gain. You don't max the gain. You keep the gain down around 7-ish. That's when the bright cap's really working and tightening everything up nicely. Strangely though, if you put a 0047 in it, you get some of that mid range that you're wanting to hear because you're pushing that mid-range knob. You get some of that mid-range back in, and then it sounds really cool that way.
Yeah. I actually had a guy email me during the week and was asking this question, Dave.
You try that in your JEL.
Yeah, I should actually. Yeah.
Because I did that on the minis.
All right.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. So wait, this guy actually asked me, he said, well, I've heard Dave talking about putting a 4700 in a 2204, and I said, well, you should do it. Go for it.
I mean, it's not. I mean, it just gives you a little bit more of a mid-range bump when it's down. When you're, of course, this is variable how low you're setting your gain, but that's the only thing I don't like about bright caps. It's like I don't like the fact that you don't have control. You can use that between 6 and 8. Really? And have
your whole spectrum is ruined.
And if the sound you want is in that spectrum, you're good. But if it's not, then you're not. I mean, it's kind of why I never put them in my amps.
Yeah.
It's not that I don't like it. I just don't like the fact that someone could really mess it up bad.
Yeah. Well, they do, right? It is it's a great trick, but it's only one. It's a one trick.
Yeah.
Yeah. Speaking of that, there's the JEL there, right? Underneath that, Dave. Well, I've got you here. I'm going to ask you a question. That's a Steve Stevens 4x12.
Okay.
That I picked up in a trade a month or so ago, and I haven't got around to taking the back off it to see what's in it because I did some searches and thanks, man. Fire out speakers.
Celestian.
Celestian speakers. Oh wow.
Or you hope, unless you traded for something that you don't know what you got.
I trust the guy. I know him. I know I hunt him down if it's not.
Yeah.
So my question is this: is that all greenbacks or is it greenbacks and V30s?
Okay. Well, depending on the era.
Okay, that's why. Because
I saw them all vintage 30s.
Oh, it could be all V30s as well.
Early is all V30s. Then it went to greenbacks and V30s. And if we make I don't know if we ever switched it to all greenbacks, so it's probably not that.
Okay.
Newer cabinets, if you were to ask me what Steve uses now, is all greenbacks. He had different eras in his career that early on it was greenbacks, and then he went to vintage 30s for years and years and years, and then slowly started to get away from that. Now he's back to all greenbacks where he started from.
Yeah, right. Well, I'll take the back off it.
That is when he's using a cabinet.
Yeah. So I saw a rig. Did I see a rig when he was using heads into reactive load and then?
Yeah, 2 notes, wasn't he?
Well, now he's using the heads into 2 notes with no cabs. He was using it into Boss Waza tube amp expander for a while, but he still had cabinets off stage, and then eventually it just kind of, it really isn't about Steve wanting to do it that way. It's about Billy not wanting to have a loud stage volume for his singing anymore.
Yeah,
because for years Steve had like 3 stacks, and he would face. It was glorious. He would face the cabinets slightly away from the singer, so it was pointing more towards side stage a little bit. It was the whole 3 stacks were angled a bit, and mostly he was using 3 bottom cabinets. But oh man, that sounded glorious though. God, he played loud then.
That's amazing. It's so not as
wet,
not
dry,
as bad
wet
as,
rig, and it was like blisteringly loud.
I was watching the there's a Jakey Lee video where he's got 2 cabs set up and they're angled.
Oh yeah.
But one's like angled at the singer.
Well, and he explains in that Premier Guitar thing how he does that. He goes, well, with this cabinet, I'd like to punish the monitor guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then with this cabinet,
monitor guys deserves punishing. Yeah.
I'm punishing the singer. And the guy says, I stand in the middle. Sounds great. Sounds great right there. It makes a lot of sense, actually. But
well, he can move around, I guess, right? Like you can kind of get out of harm's way if he needs to, or he can move in there.
100 watt amp on 10 in a club. Gotta give him props for that. Proper.
That's insane.
Proper. Yeah, sort of. Of course, I remember I was at the a whiskey show where he was playing like that, and of course, like if you walk to a different part of the bar, you realize that they didn't put any guitar in the PA at all, which I don't totally agree with. Even if it's quieter than the actual sound off the stage, they should blend in a little bit into the PA, just so it fills the room in all the spots that you're not right on top of his amps. Come on.
Yeah. So, Warwick, have you ever been in the situation where you couldn't put guitar in front of house?
Never. No, honestly, even if you've got a loud, annoying guitar in the PA, I always find I use the PA then to add a little bit more low, mid, and bottom end to the guitar, because if it's loud and barky up the top end, it's annoying. But as soon as you add bottom end to a loud, annoying signal, it makes it more pleasant to listen to. So there's never been a situation where I haven't put guitars in the PA ever.
Excellent.
Ever. I knew that would be the answer, but I thought it was worth asking.
No.
If he ever tours again, you should be his sound guy.
Yeah, I'm sure you'd be into that.
Yeah. Awesome.
There's a techie question here.
Oh.
Can you explain the function of putting a resistor across the preamp volume? So I'm going to say the gain pot on a JCM 800. So let's assume it's a 2203 or a 2204.
What? And you put like a 1 meg across it?
Yeah, well, you can do lots of things here. Dave, do you want to have a crack at answering this one? So the question is, why would you put a resistor across a gain pot in a 2203?
Well, across what part of the gain pot? So there's several ways to do this.
Yes. Well, this is an interesting question.
Yeah. So you can put it from the wiper to ground, which is that's a different result from putting it, say, across the pot. Now, so if you're putting it across the pot, it's changing the value of the pot first off. So, but you're creating a voltage divider with whatever's in front of it. So, if you have, say it's was this 800? So, okay, you're going to be lowering the gain by putting a 220. If you're talking about, he's probably referring to what you've done, putting a 220K across or a 330K across it, across the 1 meg. If it's a 220K, it's getting you about 180K to ground. So you create a voltage divider, and that is bleeding signal off. A lot of times with too much gain, it gets kind of fartier, too loose sounding. If you really have the gain hopped up, not so much in a stock 800. I don't necessarily agree with putting that into a stock 800. If you're hopping up the second stage, then it makes sense.
100%.
I think the stock 800 sounds fine the way it is. But if you put it, if let's say you just have a coupling cap and you have a 1 meg pot, let's just say that's happening, and you put a resistor from the wiper to ground, so you're creating a different voltage divider. So when that pot is turned, to say half, Okay, so that would be 470K in series, 470K to ground. Normally, if you put 100K there, it is then lower than 100K. Top of my head, I would have to figure that out, but
Yeah.
lower than 100K. So it's a kind of a radical voltage divider at that point as you turn the pot down. Changes the taper of how the pot works, kind of.
Yeah, this is it, right? It's really interesting.
I just put it real simply in simple terms.
It's one of those ones where you can kind of like try it. You could try the resistor across the pot and then try it on the wiper and see which taper you like the best using your ears. Because when it's on 10, when the pot's on 10, it's the same. But when you start bringing it down, it's going to be all over the place.
Well, it's sort of the same. It's not if you put it from wiper to ground, it's not really the same. If you put it on 10, yeah, you're still loading what's preceding it, loading it down with 100K.
Yeah.
Resistor. So,
but when it's the same as if you had a resistor across the whole pot, or
it's the same as then. Yes.
Yeah, so that's the same then. Yeah. But as soon as you start putting the pot down, as you said, Dave, it's going to have a different voltage divider compared to if you have the resistor totally across the pot.
Mm-hmm.
One of those ones you just kind of like you do it, but yeah, you will reduce the gain, and it'll take out a bit of bottom end too. It tends to happen.
Well, it sort of depends on what you have. So how you're loading that preceding stage, the capacitor of the preceding stage, is a big thing.
Yes.
So when you look at if you have a 470K resistor and then whatever, you put that thing across the resistor across the pot. So you're seeing a 470K and then you're seeing 180K, 220K to ground, whatever you're seeing. The load on the actual capacitor before it, preceding it, is like 750K or 750K, yeah, roughly something like that. So it's not loading down that capacitor very much. The capacitor is providing full amount of gain, full amount of frequency response, everything. But if you just say you just start putting resistors, the lower value resistors, after that cap, it is a high pass filter.
Yes.
So then once it's a high pass filter, you start, like if you look at a Jose amp, it's a 0022, and then they basically have the equivalent of, they have a little voltage divider that's 268K resistors, generally speaking. So that's like a little under 140K to ground. So there's 140K load on that 0022. That is rolling bass off.
Yeah.
And if you put a fat cap in, let's say, and you put that in, when you switch it in, you hear it. You really hear it. It's a big change, because then the bigger cap drives the load better. I'm trying to put this in simple terms.
Yeah, no. And if you do, if anyone does a Google search of high pass filter, you'll see a cap and then a resistor to ground. That's what they show, right? And that's kind of what this is, what Dave's talking about. So,
and so that's part of the when I was doing like the Jake amp, for instance, which is that across the 1 meg pot, the 220K resistor or whatever. At first it's like, well, I like this, but it's like loose, kind of loose and farty sounding, and it's got to lower the gain a little bit. It's just a little too much, and then all of a sudden you get to a point when it's just, oh, there it is, tightened up, it's good, Yeah. It's just stuff you can play with. You learn over time what you can do, and
definitely. Question here, I'm assuming this is for me. Will you do a single channel amp, no MIDI, no frills? Yes. 2024 sometime.
This is Jason's real job now, so
yeah, I've got to come up with some new shit. Yeah, I I was keen. Yeah, I'm a product. I like products, right? It was in my old job. I was a product manager, so I had to kind of stop myself from trying to release too much stuff. So I was like, no, that's a 2024 thing. So, but that will happen for sure. We had this conversation just before, Dave, actually, and it was sparked off. So the question from Anthony is, any strong feelings on the 6v6 tube? We were talking about the JJ 6v6S actually, and
those are cool.
Yeah. I'm interested in your thoughts on that, because I certainly like them, and so did Was.
Yeah, they can be good if designed right and tweaked right. The only problem with the JJ 6v6, although it's great because it can take high plate voltage and all sorts of things.
Yeah.
It's you can't use it in a combo because it rattles like hell. So that's the one problem with that. I personally, I'd stay away from 6v6s and in an amp I would design, because there isn't a lot of great ones available. It's not like EL34 is okay. You got PS Fane, you got three different sorts of JJs. You have how many different electroharmonics EL34s are there? There's electroharmonics, there's tongue soul, there's Lana, there's Mullard. You have a lot of choices there, at least. With the 6v6, tell me what the choices are. JJ and EH.
And I think there's a tongue soul, and that's about it.
Yeah.
I've tried a few different tongue souls, and all of them, they didn't last more than a couple of hours.
Yeah. So I mean, personally, I wouldn't make a new amp with a that's just me, but it's just too limited for me. I just can't. I mean, it's a good thought, because it's the right tube for a large bottle tube for a power, lower powered amp.
Yeah,
but man, there's just not that many available.
You just got to get the.
Hey, I'm going to design a new KT66 amp.
How about designing a new Sovtech 5881 amp, Dave?
Not going to do that either. I'm gonna try to do nothing based on Russian tubes at the moment.
Yeah, exactly.
Not the prices they're charging for them.
Well, this is it. I mean, you can still get them, but man,
you can get them, but not in the same kind of way you used to be able to get them, and triple the price or something.
Yeah. I've actually only sourced a few of those recently because I've retubed a Dirty Shirley or something like that someone bought in, Dave, and so I've wanted to put 5881s in it, of course. So I'm pleased that you can still get them, but yeah, man, they're not cheap.
Here's another thing: the 6550s and stuff don't go there either. It's so expensive these days.
Oh, they're ridiculous.
Hey, I want to retube my SVT. Oh, okay. Here's how much it's going to be. What?
Yeah, Alex is saying, this is interesting. On the Origin 20s, it's a 6K6 primary on the output transformer, apparently. So you could probably put 6v6s straight into that amp. Yeah, that could. You should try it, Alex. Let me know.
Yeah, I mean, that's less current on the heaters and everything. So yeah, it'd be fine.
Yeah, give it a go. I'd be interested to. I don't have an Origin 20 anymore. I gave it away.
Yeah, it's the same as the other ones.
It may seem like a dumb question. Is it normal for leaking capacitors to cause intermittent signal cut in and cut out? Coupling caps or filter caps? Well, I don't think leaking caps in any scenario is going to be good, but
no. I mean, filter caps can do all sorts of weird things. Oh man, they be squealing at you. Could be all sorts of crazy.
Cause oscillation, all kinds.
Oh yeah. I know all about that.
Yes, I had one fail as a dead short, like a guy bought on a 2205 that was blowing fuses on startup, and one of the mains caps had failed into a dead short. So like, anything can happen to them.
Yeah,
That's maybe
usually
not surprising with the kind of wall voltage occasionally that you guys have.
Yeah.
Healthy.
This is it. Yeah.
Insanely healthy at times.
Yeah. Thanks for the super chat there. Marco. So Dave, Marco is building up a really nice collection of vintage Marshalls. I was lucky enough to work on a 74 non-master volume JMP a couple of weeks ago, and that was a really great sounding amp. So he's got a 69 Super PA, and it's already been drilled for an extra preamp tube. So looking for some inspiration. What would you do, Dave?
I mean, well, an extra gain stage for sure. You got an extra tube, so
no-brainer, right?
Well, what sort of sound do you want? You know, how do you answer that?
Well, he's got so Marco's got.
Yes, I mean it's obvious you could do like some sort of Jose thing. It doesn't have to be a parallel stage, but you could do some sort of Jose thing because you have the extra tube. You could do a Soldano mod for all that matter because you have the extra tube. You could do whatever, you know.
You could come and see Jason and I every second month and get it changed.
This is true.
And have all of them every second month.
You could do that. Since you've got a stock Plexi and you've got a pretty much stock 2203 Marco, so I would go the extra gain stage on that one for sure.
Yeah. Why not?
Yeah. Go a beast.
So Brad's saying it's a party. I think that must be in reference to you joining, Dave. I am sure.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, that's okay. I'll be leaving shortly. I just pop in for a minute.
The Kelly 50, the Jose. That's the Jose amp that I do. Yes, I'm still building those. Those are just built to order. So unlike the Alta, where I'm just like building them and selling, those I just do to order, one at a time, basically. So, but yeah, still doing them. Alex, man, you didn't need to send me $50, but I appreciate it massively. Thank you. Who else just looked up used Origin prices? Yeah, it's going to be a run on these Origins, Dave. Oh dear.
Yeah, modding those is sort of a pain.
It is a pain.
I mean, it just that you have to change so much about the circuit. It's just like,
you know,
I mean, you can do it, but it's
like the
good thing is you just pop the circuit board out and lay it on your bench, which I appreciate that. So, but
you can. It is a lot of work to undo what they did.
Yeah,
and
then are you gonna put a loop back into it after you use the tube that they use for the loop for your cathode follower or something? And how much money do you want to spend?
Yeah, you to mod it is going to cost you as much as the amp, probably. Yeah. You know, so but if you've got one and you want to hang on to it, you know, whatever.
At that point, go buy a used Friedman 20 watt. You know, at some point it gets to be crazy.
My only comment on the Origin is that it was good for me because when I did that mod video, it helped build my channel. And I'll give credit to you, Dave, because I got the idea to mod it from you.
Yeah, because I modded one for a friend.
You modded one.
Yeah, and I modded a 20 watt one. I've modded a 50 watt one too.
I heard Pete Thorne talk about it, and it just got me really curious. So I started kind of.
That sounded cool.
The circuit, yeah.
I kind of like the 20 watt one. I kind of like that one better to mod than I like the.
It's a fun amp.
Yeah,
because you can crank it. You can absolutely crank it, and it comes up if you do a Plexi style circuit, and that it comes up pretty great too. I reckon it would sound pretty similar to the SV20 actually.
Yeah,
so pretty much same transformers, right? As we know,
different power tubes, right? Isn't the Origin
34s?
The 20 is 34s.
Yeah, cathode bias.
I guess it is the same.
I'm sure it's the same output transformer, visibly
same
looks like
power transformer, same output transformer, same power switching, same
factory,
same chassis.
Same PCBs, same components, same
components,
same
different head shell.
Different head shell. Yeah.
Different circuit.
I get asked this question all the time, Dave, Warwick, so I'm interested in whether you guys have ever touched this. The question is, Jason, Dave, or Warwick, have you ever modded a DSL-20, or is it just not worth it?
I've never even seen one in person.
Yeah, no.
Me neither.
And I would say no. I would just say no.
Yeah.
Yeah. I get asked this question a bit because I did once mod a DSL 100, a JCM 2000, one of the older ones, you know.
I mean, I've done a couple little tweaks to the little tiny tweaks to an old one that make it slightly better for a minimal amount of money, you know.
Just to try and clean it up a bit because they're a bit, you know, I don't know. It's a word to describe them. But they're a bit, I mean, there's too much gain and bass in the preamp, you know, like on the gain channels on those.
It can be okay. I wound up cutting out or disconnecting the little up amp resonance circuit that they have in it, and wound up putting like a normal resonance circuit. And I think I altered the negative feedback a little bit, and that improves it a lot. And then I wound up, I think, maybe putting a cap that darkens it a little bit from where it is, makes it a little less scratchy. That across the cathode resistor before the EQ. Just minor things. And in actuality, those minor things made a big difference.
Yeah.
This is the Dave. This is the amp. The JCM 2000 is the amp that Nuno is touring with. His one that he's had, whatever. And the settings, just briefly, because we got this question during the week, Warwick. Someone's like, please tell us what the settings are for Nuno's amp. He's running the presence on 1, the treble on 1, the mids on 1, the bass on 4, the reverb obviously completely off, and he's on the ultra gain channel, and he's got, so it's got 2 gain pots or something, a gain and sensitivity, whatever the hell it is. The first one's at 5 and the other one's at 4. And he's running in the lower gain mode of the gain channel. So he's basically like all the top ends roll completely off presence. He's got the bass on 4 and he's got the gain at about, let's call it midday, and then he's in the lower gain mode. So
that's weird.
I haven't tried it, but probably sounds
well, then he puts a rat on in front of it.
Yeah.
But with the gain down, and then he uses that on all the time, I think, right?
I think so.
Yeah, that's all weird, but
yeah, it is.
Okay. Weird. Must be dark.
Well, Warwick, have we still got you there? Because I know you.
He's frozen in time right now.
You're frozen in time. You might need to rejoin and come back. But I did. So Warwick's friend Simon, who was teching for Vernon Reid, said that Nuno's sound on stage was very dark.
Yeah,
but the kind of compensating for it with the mic position. There your back was.
Yeah.
Did you miss some of that? We were just saying that with those settings that Nuno runs on his DSL, it must be very dark.
Well, that's what our mate was saying on stage. He was begging for some top end to be heard, but I'm not sure if he's not doing something in that. What is he using? A GT8 or something? I reckon he's cooking up some EQ in there as well, because that doesn't work.
Yeah. Right. I'm just going through these questions here, guys.
Also with him as well, I think he hits his mics right near the center of his cone as well, which I think is what's giving him a bit of his top end back as well. I think he's using mic position to help him.
Yep. That wouldn't surprise me. He was certainly very particular about his mics, wasn't he, Warwick?
He said, if anyone EQs or touches my mics, they go home.
There you go.
Yeah. James is asking, have you guys ever seen or heard of late 60s, early 70s Marshall JMPs having tube rectifiers stock from the factory?
Well, I mean, there was in the late 60s, there was the 50 watt Black Flag 50 watt, and before that it was JTM 45, and those had tube rectifiers, but other than that, not really anything else.
Dave, I had that. I remember sending you pictures of it. I had that 67, that a 50 watter. That was a transitional. I think George Metropolis featured one on his channel as well. It was basically a JTM 45 front end, but factory EL34 with a 50 watt EL34 OT, but tube rectified, definitely.
Yeah, that's sort of the transition for the Black Flag, sort of the tube rectified 50s that existed.
Yeah.
Angus uses one of those, I think, for recording.
Yeah, right. There's a whole bunch of questions here or comments about phase inverters and so on. I'm not too sure. I think Warwick, that might have been right all the way back to the original part of the conversation about. The question was, Dave, someone asked, given that in a plexi you get nice overdrive from the phase inverter, why can't we have a phase inverter in a preamp, as in a rack mount preamp, so that we get that nice overdrive?
Well, you can. I've never seen it implemented that well, although there might be some stuff in the future from Synergy that might have some kind of things like that involved.
Funny, because someone asked about Synergy at that point in time. Interesting. Okay, there you go. You heard it here first.
No, you didn't. I've toyed with that concept in my head too. Yeah, for sure. There's ways to do it. Sure. Yeah,
I guess. Yeah, you could run a phase inverter, and I guess you could just tap off. Maybe you just tap off one of them so that you still outputting a single phase signal. I don't know. I haven't really played with it.
There might be another way to do it.
Yeah. Someone was suggesting that perhaps you could run the phase inverter into a small transformer and then tap a signal off that or something.
Right.
Yeah. Anyway, so it's a product development chat going on here. What else we got here, guys? I think we're nearly through this. Someone's saying, Anthony's saying my Rev has TAD branded new old stock Shugang 6Ps. I've never played with those tubes. I don't know if Warwick, whether you have, or Dave, you have the 6Ps.
Is that the 6v6 thing that existed with them?
I'm not sure.
Is that what they're referring to? Yes, those were Shugong's 6v6 type tubes, which aren't made anymore, so that's a problem. And the PS Vane 6v6, no good at all.
Shame.
It'll at least not in its current state, but they might fix that. So
is that
I would hope they would fix it, because what's the point of having a tube that doesn't work?
This is it. Is that spec like the JJ, Dave, where it'll can handle higher voltages, or is it more?
I don't think so. It can't handle any voltage, actually. Yeah, it can't handle any. It can't even handle an amp at the moment. So
doesn't like anything above 10 volts.
It can look pretty on sitting on the shelf. It doesn't work.
You get a nice vintage vibe by looking at it. Yeah,
which is the whole problem of 6v6s for me. It's just there's just not enough of them.
Yeah, look, if there were, it would be. I didn't know they were making one, so that's good. At least it's good to know, and hopefully they get it right. Because if there's two manufacturers out there, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, hopefully they can get it right. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Matt's asking, is it possible to mod a JCM 2000 to get a more raw vintage tone?
No.
Yep. You can sell it and buy
an old amp, yeah. Just sell it
You can do stuff to change the characteristics of it, but you're not going to replicate. You're not going to get.
You're going to get away from it.
Yeah, I don't know. If you want the old stuff, you kind of got to get the old stuff. Question here for you, Dave. If you've got a sec. Just picked up a classic neck and classic plus humbuckers. It must be Friedman pickups, I'm assuming. Wiring diagram doesn't say what the red and white wires are. Could you say which is start and
same as
finish?
Duncan?
Thanks. Okay, there you go.
Same exact color code as a Seymour Duncan. We did that for a reason.
Yeah, too easy.
So I could just say that.
Yes.
Yeah, Nuno's a rat guy. It was hard to see it.
I don't understand any of that. I hate rats. I don't like a rat pedal in any way, shape, or form, unless you turn all the knobs to 10 and it sounds like a fuzz. That is kind of cool, but other than that,
what about with the gain? I've never actually tried it with the gain all the way off.
I don't like it. I don't like the tone of it at all.
Rats are a real Aussie thing. Lots of Aussie
hate
dudes
rats. I mean, I've heard people get good sounds, but I can't. They feel weird to me. I don't know. It's not my thing. I mean, he makes it work. So
yeah, but he could play anything, that dude. Lyle's here again. Hey, man. Deja vu. Yeah, it's happening all over again.
It's funny. Lyle called me about something. He called me right before I was doing another podcast, which is right before I came to here.
Oh, right.
I'm busy tonight.
Really, really recent contact.
Yeah. Oh,
yeah. Here we go. I have a Jet City 20 vintage head. Did they have a vintage line, or did you just mean it was just an old one?
No, it's an old one, I think. Yeah.
Deep switch. It's too clean before it breaks up, and too much headroom. Any recommendation besides a pedal?
I mean, those are super easy amps to mod. They come out great, so you can do all sorts of mods on it.
Are they pretty much like a kind of a 2204 front end, Dave? Like, are they?
Yeah, it's pretty much like it's like a slightly modified Soldano version of it. It's more like a Soldano crunch channel.
I was going to say it doesn't have that extra stage, right? It's still a 3-stage plus cathode follower.
Yeah. It's a 800-ish sort of front end. Yeah, in signal path wise. So it's super easy to mod to whatever you want it to be, and comes out really well, actually. That's a good one.
Shredding 51 is saying the old JCM 2000s, the DSL 50 anyway, fantastic amp, but the new DSL China made stuff not so much.
Well, early 2000s weren't that great. What did it take? 20 revisions of the board to get them so they didn't bias drift? 20?
Yeah, probably.
It was.
Something like that.
The last board was revision 20.
Yep. I've got one of those old amps because it was one of those things I picked up like really cheap because it wasn't working.
Right.
Like, I'll buy this and fix it, right?
Oh, no.
Yeah, it's a pain. How did you solve it? Did you do the drilling out around the pins, or did you?
Well, no. Like, it didn't have the. It was sold as a only one channel working amp. And I thought, okay, well, I'm game. I don't know. I bought it 2 years ago and it sat on the shelf for a year, and then I finally got to look at it, and it had in the DC supply, this thing has got PCB mounted fuses. Those little brown,
yeah,
kind of look like little caps, little radial caps, whatever. Yeah, both of them had blown and blown fuses, and obviously the question is, well, why? Anyway, I did replace the fuses, of course, brought it up nice and gentle on the Variac and so on, and it's been fine ever since. Not that I've played it a hell of a lot, but it is fine. But I sent a picture of the main board to Brad at Brad's Guitar Garage, who I know has repaired a few of these with the bias drift problem, and he said, your board's already been replaced, so you're all good.
Yeah.
So somewhere in its life, someone replaced the main board. So I was lucky. Yeah. There's the only way you can really fix those is to replace the main board. Yeah. I would have. Otherwise, it's probably.
There's another way. You could just throw it in the can outside.
Yeah.
Preferred way.
Yeah.
Because then you're gonna have to like all those connectors and everything. They're not really labeled or anything, and it's just like taking it apart.
Why did they? I don't know.
Here's how much the board's going to cost you, but then it's going to cost me you even more for me to put it in. A lot more.
Why did they? It could be the Marshall movie. Marshall, why did they?
Well, I think there's going to be this thing about the origin. I mean, there's a lot of people that love their origins. I tell you, I'm going to go on the gear page and have a look. They love their origins. So
yeah, a lot of people love McDonald's.
They're going to be devastated, I tell you. Yeah, some comments here about the rats, guys.
Yeah,
Brian Wample likes it, not for me.
He made a rat.
Yeah.
Oh, really? What did he call it?
Rat's Bane.
Okay.
Look, with rats as well, I've got a heap of them, and I probably like 2 of them. Like, there are magic rats. Some sound really good. A lot sound like a bad fuzz pedal. But that whole running the gain down and running the volume up, you're just making a sort of different style treble booster, really. That's all he's using it for. He just wants it percussive. And that's what a lot of dudes used to do with really thick sounding turned up amps, is they put those in the front of them just to tighten it up. Not for more gain. It was just a filter.
Yeah. The Rit here says, Dave has a personal vendetta against poorly designed Marshalls.
I saw that.
Yeah. Maybe even a bigger vendetta against Mesa Boogie.
Well, I can proudly
if you're bringing up poorly designed.
Absolutely.
I can proudly say I've never ever worked on a Mesa Boogie.
And nor should you ever.
Yeah, I won't.
Won't
do it.
Don't do it.
I think it's a personal vendetta against poorly designed Marshalls. It's just ones that people want you to fix to be not poorly designed. That's the thing. People expect you to be able to modify anything, and you can't with a lot of those amps. Can't fix that.
What I find, kind of bizarre about all that stuff, and I say all that stuff, I mean all those kind of Marshalls that people go, oh, they don't quite sound right. There's just so much stuff in them.
Yeah.
So many, so kind of overdone with so many components and extra gain stages, and it doesn't need all that stuff.
Keep it simple, stupid.
Keep it simple, man.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just someone flexing their university degree. Really, that's all it is.
100%.
Well, guys, I gotta go.
Yeah.
My time has come and went.
Thanks for dropping in, Matt. We're nearly through these questions. Yeah. So we'll
continue on, people.
Yeah. Good to see you, Dave.
All right. See you guys later. See ya.
Catch you, buddy.
Bye.
Yeah, KXM Rock Jet City is building again. Look, I think it's not the original, my understanding of all this is right. Obviously, Mike Soldano was associated with the original brand and so on. But as I understand it now, it's nothing. He's got nothing to do with it at all. And it's just been kind of picked up and been manufactured. China, is it? I'm not sure.
Who knows?
Yeah, so I wouldn't go probably too close to them. Lyle says 20 revisions. Yeah, that's the DSL. Jose says, great to have Dave live on the show. Should get Jason on an Ask Dave show. Yeah, well, I've been on Tone Talk once, man. That was 18 months ago. I'm going to guess something like that.
God.
Yeah, amazing name. Time flies. I would love to go on Dave's show again, obviously, if he ever wanted me there. Warwick, this is one for you, man, I'm sure. Fan of the Wild says, hey guys, cheers for everything you do. Have you ever played any Sherlock amps? I'm sure you have.
I don't like boogies.
Do you want to introduce Sherlock? So
It's Dale Sherlock. He's a Melbourne. He's been around for ages, actually. And look, he's a great tech. He does a amp called the Fathead.
Yeah.
Actually, Dale, one cool thing about Dale was for years he's been offering a MIDI kit. And before you came along, it was the only MIDI kit I could find.
Ah.
Yeah, so he's been doing a MIDI kit for quite a while. Yeah.
Is it just is it just the microprocessor and then you kind of use that to hook up to your relays or whatever?
Yeah, there's a board. I can't remember. It's been a while since I've seen one. But I know that he was selling it, and it was a kit. I don't think you assembled it. It was all you buy the board and install it from memory. But yeah, look, the Dale's amp designs are very. It's a recto. Most of the stuff he builds.
Because that Fathead is it's a 4-channel head, right? It looks like it's
3 or 4. Yeah,
a lot of stuff packed into it for sure.
Does a little pedal as well. I think I've got one somewhere. That was kind of cool as well, a tube pedal. Yeah, but very, very boogie influenced. Yeah, he does good stuff.
I've never played one myself, so I can't. I'm certainly aware.
Not my cup of tea, but plenty of people out there like it, and yeah.
Any experience with nailers? No, not personally. Dave would have.
We don't really. Not a lot of them. I think I would have seen in my whole career maybe one. I think came into the workshop in the 90s. But you don't really see them. Like we didn't really get nailers. We didn't really get a lot of trainers down here either. A lot of those amps never really made it down. There's a couple here and there, but not a lot.
Yeah, there's a question here for Lyle, which is interesting.
Ooh.
And Lyle says, I don't feel right answering questions on Jason. Go for it, Lyle. Man, help me out. In fact, I'll get you on one of these streams if you're up for it, man. That would be awesome. And Lyle also says none of you guys know how to dial an origin in. Yeah, is that like as in turn it off? How you make an origin sound good? No, but the question is a JCM 900 SLX. Okay, so that's that was the last of the 900s, wasn't it? It's more of a traditional.
Yeah, the one that had more glass in the front end.
Yeah, exactly.
Quite bright from memory, those amps.
Are those 900s quieter than the other series? Yeah, look, good question for Lyle. I don't actually know, but if it's all, as you say, if it's an all glass front end, it potentially is more quiet.
Well, I don't know if it's all glass. I know it was more glass.
Yeah,
because the traditional 900s, the other ones were just all op amp front ends. Didn't see a tube until way later in the circuit. Some people love them.
Yeah, look, if you're going to work on one, that's probably the one to get. And I think that there's the Mark. Is it the Mark III? Has also had more glass than because when people think of 900s, I think they probably normally think of the dual reverb.
Yes.
Mostly solid state front end one.
Yes.
But there's a 900 Mark III that's also a bit more like the SLX. Is not all, but more glass front end.
Yeah.
Okay. I know Dave Leslie, I'm pretty sure, right? Dave Leslie, if anyone doesn't know Dave, Baby Animals, right? Toured with Van Halen in the 90s. Dave's still active and playing here in Melbourne. Great guy. He loves 900s, doesn't he? Someone told me.
He used to, I know he used to use them as power amps. For like I don't know what he's doing at the moment, but I know he was going fractal front end and then into the power amps of a 900. Like there are people out there that love them. I've got quite a few customers that still really love them, and now they're vintage, which is weird. But yeah, look, they're fairly solid.
They are. Yeah, look, they're part of Marshall history. I think
Yeah,
that's
absolutely.
kind of, I'd probably still rather have one of those than a JCM 2000. Funnily enough.
A lot simpler.
Yeah.
They were like the first Marshalls that were shipped. They used to have those little 5881 stickers on them. Like that's when Marshall switched to 5881s for quite a while. Yeah, that was the start of them, and I think they sound better with 5881s.
Yeah, cool. I've never owned a 900, and I've only ever had one, a couple in here, one to fix. One I ended up, because the guy actually wanted this. He wanted it completely gutted and a whole new circuit put into it, which I did, but again, swore that I'd never do it again. It was just one of those things that I wanted to try once, and then I'm like, okay, I'm not doing that again. Troy was asking again about, Troy, I'm sure you asked this last week too, man, and we never answered it. We didn't know. The Mesa Stiletto. Maybe Lyle would actually know a bit about that amp. Lyle's still in the chat. And I think, Lyle, you're saying that's, yeah, man. Okay, cool. I think you're saying that in reference to jumping on the stream one Thursday. That'd be awesome. Yeah, man. I'll ping you. What else have we got here, guys? Some more love for Lyle here. Just cool. Constantly watching. That's awesome. Yeah, so this guy's saying I have a JCA 22H, which is different than the 20, right? This is a different amp. The 22 is my memory of this, modded to an SLO preamp. Yeah, those also can be modded and sounded pretty cool. I worked on the JCA 50, which again has a very SLO-like architecture. Can't remember whether that one's got relays or LDRs. I cannot remember, but it came up pretty good actually. Since someone mentioned Sherlock, have you guys ever seen Warwicke amps? I remember back in the day they were regarded. Yes, and there's still a lot of them around.
Yep.
I worked on a stadium. Yeah, you would have seen heaps, right?
Yep. I've basically Dave kind of stopped doing it for a while, so all the people that you saw in his videos playing Warwickes all came to me afterwards. So yeah, I've seen heaps of them. And they're look, Dave Warwicke, his work is not the neatest and blah blah, but he has a fantastic set of ears. And I really like the way that he tunes stuff. I don't agree with everything he does inside an amp. Certainly don't agree with the, how can I say this nicely, some of the business practices he entered into. But he's a lovely, lovely human being, very talented, fantastic ears.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah.
I've never met Dave. I'd obviously love to.
Yeah.
Maybe have it one day. I've only had one Warwicke in here.
Which one?
It was a Stadium 80. And it was simple, like the job was fitting an effects loop into it. It came out great. It's fine.
Yep.
Yeah.
No
problem.
Look, they were built really well. Like, well, yeah, his boards, were J-Car sort of boards that he used to buy, and there's nothing wrong with that. The heart of his amp that I thought was really the whole sound of his amp was he was using Vola transformers.
Yeah. I got a couple of custom PTs done by Vola before he retired. They're great. And they came out great. Oh, you remember that, right? We did it with Scott Kingman, yourself,
absolutely.
And I got
it's a shame he's retired. Vola made a fantastic transformer. And yeah, that I feel that was most of the sound of Dave's amps with those transformers.
Yeah, interesting. I've actually got, just while we're talking about Ulbrich and Dave, Joel Wheeler just dropped off. So Joel has a new YouTube channel with Brett Kingman. Some of the guys in the chat might know Brett from, Aussie YouTuber with 80,000 plus subscribers. Brett's got this other kind of side channel. It's called Rabid Dogs, and there's 3 of them. It's the guys from Nepean Music.
Okay.
Yeah, the store down in Mornington here, down on the peninsula here in Melbourne. And anyway, Joel dropped off it's a 1987X, so it's a 50 watt reissue, but it's one of the first reissues, so it's like an older amp.
Yep.
It was modded by Dave, a Jose mod apparently, and he doesn't really want it. He doesn't want it changed. He wants a bit more versatility in it in terms of being able to make some stuff kind of foot switchable, like a dual master volume, basically for live use. But I haven't cracked it open yet, but I'm really keen to see what Dave's done to it in terms of his approach to the Jose style mod.
That stems from so one of Dave's big customers back in the day, and they're lifelong friends, is Jack Jones, Erwin Thomas.
Yeah.
So I know Jack had a Jose that he brought back to Australia, and
he did. I've seen that amp. I know who owns it now.
Yes. So there was he and so he had Dave Ulbrich basically copy that circuit, and from memory he preferred the sound of the one that Dave copied and then sold the Jose.
Really?
Both floating around. Yeah, I've seen both floating around.
Well, they're both white. This one's got a white as a white head cab, right? Original white Tonal X. And I know that the Jose that I saw that I was told used to belong to Erwin Thomas was white. It's a white head cab. So I mean, not that means anything, but interesting. Had the same look. Haven't been inside that Jose. I've only kind of seen it, and I'm hoping one day to have a closer look at it.
Yeah.
Where are we up to, guys? There's a few more things here to get through. So Brad owns a Alta 100. Good on you, Brad. You're in Texas, aren't you, mate? Jason, can you briefly share how you and Simon Hosford, got the echo and delay sounds for the VH and docking clips in the 12 tones 1 amp video? The reverb sounded massive. Yeah. So I'd have to ask Simon that. All I know is that he was getting, so the echo or any reverb or echo was done post, right, in Pro Tools, and he was just using. I asked him about the reverb sound because I remember thinking, wow, that reverb sounds amazing, so just 3-dimensional, and he just said, I'm just using one of the Pro Tools stock plugins. No, it wasn't through Outboard Gear or anything like that, but. Yeah, we've got to remember to ask Simon. Hopefully I can report back, Brad, or we can get Simon onto one of these. I actually asked him to come on today, but he was flying to Brisbane for one of his for a gig.
Yep.
Basically.
One thing with digital reverbs that people don't do a lot as well, I find helps, is EQ them. Like I find a lot of digital verbs, the bottom end and the top end sound terrible, but if you high pass and low pass them, and get rid of that crap, they sound a lot better, a lot more natural.
Yeah. Alex is working on a 900 at the moment. Which one is it, Alex? Is it at least 3 versions that I'm aware of? So it'd be interesting to know. 5881.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There was a whole bunch of things with those early ones. Like there was the bias feed resistors to pin 5 were wacky values on some of them. There's a whole bunch of things you got to look out for those early ones to make to get them to work right.
Troy saying he would was it 1,000,000% take a DSL over a 900. Yeah, it's interesting, man. I guess it depends. It depends. I'd love to know how you dial that in, Troy, right? Because it's like that amp, as far as I remember, has basically 4 modes, right? 2 channels, but within each channel, you've got switchable modes. And there must be some good tones hidden in there somewhere.
Oh, look, every amp's got every amp on the planet has got a good tone in it. You've just got to find it. Like, you just got to play it and find it, and then play to the amp. All right. And it depends what you're doing as well. Like, you're not going to get a ton of gain out of a 900, and you're not going to get a modern drive sound out of a 900, really, unless you put a pedal in front of it. So it's just horses for courses. I don't like 2000s because I've just been hurt so much over the years by them with that whole bloody bias drift issue. So they're kind of dead to me now. So they could sound amazing, but too many of my brain cells have been lost in trying to figure out how to. And, you know, a lot of it was before the internet. Everyone was like, oh, yeah, you just drill things out. It's like, I'm doing this. Like, and then, yeah, like we figured out boards were, you know, going conductive and doing all kinds of stuff. But
so this is before you could do a search on YouTube and find and find someone like Lyle
figure
showing
stuff out. It was annoying. Way better now. I can get on someone's channel, watch it. That's great. Back then, there wasn't a lot of that, and figuring out why this amp keeps red plating. And then another one comes in. Oh, that's red plating too. Another one. Okay, we've got something, you know. So yeah, that's why.
Yeah.
I've just been bitten hard.
I hear you. David says, have you ever played with the legendary Tones Hot Mod on a Marshall? And if so, what do you think? I haven't. I'm certainly aware.
I remember like the old, what was the old Hot Mod? It wasn't the legendary Tones, but it's the one that was based on. But that one was really finicky because I think it grounded off the shield from memory. I think it grounded off the shield of the 1287. So if they got loose, it remember, you know, being a pain. But it's I haven't played with the new one. I don't play with much new stuff anymore.
Well, it's just interesting, isn't it? I wonder how they do ground those. You made me curious now.
I think on that one there is a wire with an alligator clip or something like that.
Right.
Because I'm pretty sure the old one used to ground through the, you know.
It makes sense. I can see them doing that.
And then usually those are just riveted on, and after a while they get a bit loose.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's you know, you got gain stages. It's an insert point that they're doing a game mod on. It's, you know, it's cool.
Yeah. Aussie. There's
oi.
Yeah, for sure. Murray Guitar Pickups. Hey, man. Have you guys heard of ADI Sound, Adelaide-based amp builder from the 70s and 80s? No, I haven't. I've heard of Mick Briley, for sure. I bought an ADI VT50 head from Mick Briley. I think it's similar to a Marshall JMP, or possibly. A lot of the stuff built around that time, we were kind of clone-based stuff.
Well,
certainly that was happening in New Zealand as well at the time.
Yes. New Zealand was Wasp, and it was Wasp was Hold Industry. What did you guys have?
Well, here's this question from Aquila Rosa, which says, ever run into those old Kiwi amps over here in Auslan? Well, I haven't, but we had Jansen, Holden, Rocket for sure. They were all staple brands. Like,
I remember all those.
I've owned all of them back in the day, right? This is before you could kind of you couldn't walk into a store back then and find, you know. I remember in the late 80s, you could start to get, you know, mid to late 80s, you could walk into stores and you'd see, Marshall and PV and all the stuff had arrived. But prior to that,
it took ages.
It was really, it was all dominated by local.
There were a lot of local builders back then. Like, In Australia, I remember we had Maxim, and then, well, even before that, then you had your Moody's and your Golden Tones and all that. But yeah, Maxims, they were a cool amp. 6550s. Yeah. There was lots of good stuff. And then you had your classic Eminars, yeah?
Yeah.
Eminars, awesome.
Yeah.
Sliders.
Yeah. Hey, I've got a guy contacted me recently, actually, just like last few days, and he's got an old M&R PA head with the sliders on it.
Yeah, I got like, I think 6 of them stashed somewhere. Got a whole heap of them. Yeah.
I think he uses it
for a while.
I think he uses it as a bass amp, bass head or something.
Yeah.
Says it's going awesome, but one of the sliders is kind of not really working anymore.
Those sliders are a pain. It is a pain because it depends if it's one of the front, the metal panel fronts.
Yeah.
You kind of have to take that panel off, and then you can unscrew the fader. And then sometimes I've been able to do it with it, like the front of it in place, and just pull apart the back of the fader. You've got to grease them, clean them and grease them, because otherwise they do that thing where they kind of step. Like if you try and flush them with some cleaner, it takes all the grease off the actual fader, you know, where whatever the fader sort of runs on, takes all the grease off, and then they get really steppy and it's hard to actually control. So you got to pull the back off them, clean it, and then re-grease those thingos, and they come good.
It sounds
laborious.
Annoying. It sounds annoying.
but it's what you got to do with those. I tried on one of them to replace it with pots, and it just it didn't work. And yeah, they're cool old amps.
I should send them your way, man.
No, I'm good, thanks. Cool thing about those old M&Rs was they had those massive big Ericsson transformers, which sounded really good.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, the guys are saying here, Brett, this is Brett Kingman, obviously one of the best demo channels. Yeah, if anyone's not on Brett's channel, I suggest you jump on.
I remember when Brett started doing it, like, and I was like, what? You're going to demo pedals? Like, because I've known Brett for years, yeah, because he's been playing with James Rain here in Australia for forever.
Yeah.
So, and I was like, what? You're going to do? And it kicked off. Like, good on him.
Yeah, it's amazing, man. It's
lovely, man. One of us, yeah. And yeah, brother Scott.
Yeah, they're awesome
legend as well.
Yeah, totally.
And, I mean, and let me take this time to actually say, because I was going to say it at the start, but we lost in Australia a absolute legend in our music scene, the bass player Paulie out of Screaming Jets, who Scott plays with, and it is a tragic loss, and he'll be very missed.
Yeah, that was a real shock when I saw that news.
Yes. Because we'd only seen, like, we went to the studio earlier this year, didn't we?
That was the first time. That was the first time I met Paulie.
Yes.
And so Warwicke and I got invited by Scott and for a day with the Screaming Jets while they were recording their latest, their latest album. And I'd never met Paulie before, but my memory of him that day, mate, was that he was kind of the real heart and soul of that group of guys, you know.
Absolutely.
And an incredible musician. Like, yeah. Playing,
like, he wasn't just a bass player in that band.
No, God, no.
He's absolutely a musician. Like, I saw solo shows of his, like, really, really, really big loss. And all of our love goes out to all those guys in that band, because they are like brothers to us, you know. They're really good dudes.
Yeah.
And they're hurting a lot. But yes, it's quite a segue coming from Brett Kimman, but yes.
No,
we're all related. We're all in the same family.
I'm glad you raised it. It's definitely it's a difficult time for those guys. The Ritz says, I used to own a Monomyth 1997X. Yeah, so this is one of Shay's mods. I guess it was, I wonder if that was one of the ones that he did before he kind of launched his Skeleton Key amp, quite possibly. Yeah, man, his stuff's mean as. You should get another one. This would be my suggestion. You get
what's
on
the vibe of the Skeleton Key. What's the mod vibe like? Is it a Jose or is it a what's
yeah,
his vibe?
Jose-ish.
Yeah.
But it's a different. I mean, Shay's got definitely his own thing on it. But it's really like I've had the opportunity to play one because I'd heard his clips a lot, but I never actually played one until I visited. I spent a week with Shay in May and got to play through one a bunch of times. Pretty cranky in volume as well, and it just feels really good.
Yeah,
like it's that you just kind of like it's got that elastic kind of feel to it. Yeah, really nice to play.
It's the one thing about that I feel watching demos on amps, and especially things like, say, when people do tube comparisons, like all those Pete Thorne EL34 and 12X7 comparisons. It's all good to hear the frequency response of something, but the actual feeling and the way it feels under your fingers doesn't get translated through those things. Yeah. And that's the thing, like the feel is the major part for me. So it's good to hear that it feels nice.
Yeah, mate. He spent a lot of time getting that right.
Yeah.
I think. No doubt about that. Question here from Brady. Interesting. This is in our wheelhouse, mate. Can you guys clear up some of the muddy confusion of the mid-70s JMP master volumes and the transition to early 80s JCM 2204? Some claim identical circuitry, others say no. Yeah.
It is muddy confusion, but that, like I think I said last week, is a Marshall thing. Like there really wasn't this is this circuit sort of thing. Like things always changed, especially in the 60s to 70s. 70s it started getting better, but still you'd see like boards with mustards and then one from a couple of weeks later and it had something completely different. Like componentry changed all the time.
A lot of change in components.
Everything, like basic. So like when they ran out of a value of resistor or a cap, they wouldn't stop production. They just grab something else and throw it in. So it's kind of hard to exactly pinpoint. You can sort of say what's on the schematic is what the standard is, but I don't feel that ever really was. But and then you had also at the late 70s, like you were saying before, the voltages, especially in the 50 watts, were different.
That's I'm going to say that's probably the biggest difference, right? That you had that kind of late 70s 2204s with the lower plate voltage, and B plus was about 390, somewhere around there.
Yep. And
as a result, you've probably got a 30 to 35 watt amp there. And as I said, some people don't like them, but a lot of people do. There's that they're kind of like quite sought after that era. And then by the time the 2204s transitioned into the JCM 800, they'd brought the voltages back up again. So they were kind of running pretty similar to a 100 watter, normally around about 460, somewhere around there, plate voltage. And pretty much stayed that way until the horizontal inputs came in the mid 80s, and then they changed the filtering.
Yep.
So the kind of circuit's the same, but the way the B plus,
cost cutting
B plus string, they changed it. Yeah. But they're pretty similar, man. The 800s and the JMPs, the core 2204 circuits, the same. Jason, considering you had Eddie Lenz on the channel, Eddie was great. Hey, if anyone who follows Ed, you would have seen that he's completely shaved his head. He looks pretty cool, actually. Do you know Eddie Lenz, Warwicke? He's
I think I saw. I haven't watched a lot of videos and stuff recently, so no.
He's a gifted young amp modder, builder, and guitar player. The dude's only 23. It's like,
awesome,
man, and he can really play. And he's right in, man. He's right in, and he's modding, and he's got his own. He's bought his own amp out called the Hot Chili, which you guys should check out. Ooh. It sounds awesome. Anyway, Eddie had really kind of long flowing locks, and he's just completely shaved his head. But yeah, Henrik, I've not had any contact with Henrik, although we are Facebook friends. So there you go. There's something. Yeah, he would be cool to have on. Would be awesome. Lyle says, yeah, the glorious sound of 220K grid stoppers. I think that was in reference to
Early
something
900.
Yeah. Troy, the JCM 2000s, right? DSL, green channel all the way up. Yeah, okay. So, all right. A lot of my commentary around the sound of a DSL is because the gain channel I just find completely pretty much unusable, really. It's just can't bond with it. Bit of love for the DSL 2000 here, Warwick, I've got to say. Aren't the latest DSL similar? No, Lyle's saying that the new DSL 100 is completely different than the old, in case anyone is confused. I've never studied the differences, to be honest.
Yeah, there are.
Lyle goes on to say the current DSL 140 are good, the 20 not so much. Well, Lyle, I don't know if you were on here earlier, but we were asked, and I get asked this quite a lot, any mods for a DSL 20, to which I think Dave responded by saying, yeah, put it in the bin. Was his suggestion for modding it. Yeah, someone said that Jeff Beck was also using a JCM 2000 DSL 50. But hey, he's Jeff Beck. He could make anything sound good.
Yeah. Look, a lot of musicians also will pick an amp like that. Like a lot of musicians use Fender hot rods, yeah, deluxes and DeVilles, because you can get it anywhere you go in the world.
Yeah.
It's not always a tone thing that will dictate what touring musicians are going to choose. It is more of a convenience, and because the days of shipping around your amp are fairly gone because of the prices that airlines charge for baggage and extra baggage. Yeah. So a lot of the time tonal decisions are made for practicality as well. So that might be the reason why a lot of them use them. And, you can pull a sound out of anything. Most dudes can. So I just don't love the 2000s because I've been hurt.
Yeah, I just think there's better Marshalls, like there's better Marshalls out there. And I think you're right about the hire thing. I remember with our little brief encounter with Nuno when he spoke about his JCM 2000, and he had 3. Right? He had one that his amp that he brought with him, and he had 2, and he just goes like, I can hire them. Yep. And no matter where I go, I can hire them. And so I've got two backups ready to go.
The thing at the end of the day is, for touring, you are out there, you have to eat and make money. And lots of bands have made the mistake of flying all their own gear, and you make zero money and you're in debt when you come home. So you have to make decisions based on what realistically is out there. That's why hot rods and like those amps are so many terrible things about them, but they're everywhere.
Lyle says, I like this. They make good doorstops, and that's the DSL 20.
Yeah, right.
He said that'll be in response to Dave's favorite mod, which is put it in the trash can. Yep. Okay, guys, where are we at here? We've got a couple more things here to get through, I think, and then we're nearly at 2 hours 20. Again. God, he can't avoid it.
It's like, only jump on for a little bit. I'm supposed to be working. Like, freaking Microsoft Teams is going off its nuts. But anyway, break them white.
Yeah, Alex says M&R transformers can
absolutely
survive an apocalypse. Yeah. A question: why do 100-watt Marshalls have a bias wind on the PT instead of pulling from the main wind? Okay, I know a little bit about this. It's much easier to do a bias tap on when you've got a power transformer with the secondary is center tapped, and the center tap is grounded. So you're seeing a 50-watt power transformer in a Marshall, you'll typically see that you've got a secondary that's center tapped and grounded, and you can tap off one of those secondaries really easily. You try and do that in a secondary that's going through a full bridge rectifier, it's a lot harder. They did it in the 900. If you look at the schematic for a JCM 900 in the 100-watt model, 100-watt model, and you'll see that that's what they've done. But your bias circuitry has to be kind of more complex, and it's a bit of a pain in the ass actually. So that's kind of probably the main reason.
That's pretty much it.
Yeah. So what else we got here? Marco said the 69 PA has an older RS triple pot in it. Yeah, I'm keen to have a look at that head, Marco. If you ever get to the point where you want me to have a look at it, man. Lyle, here we go. So cascaded gain stages, 2203, 2204 started late 76, early 77. Yeah. Transformers had different voltages. 77, 79s had the 6. Oh, okay. So the 0.68 presence cap. Yeah, cool. Interesting. I always wondered what era, what exact period that they had those presence caps. There you go. I think we might be there, Warwick.
Woohoo!
A couple of other comments in the chat here, but I think they're more like just commentary rather than actual questions. And we've just done the 2-hour 20 mark again, man, which is pretty much how we did it last time. So
yeah, lovely.
Yeah, thanks for hanging around.
That was good fun.
Yeah. I'll let you get back to the rest of your Friday and work. And thanks for hanging around, guys. Thanks for all the super chats and the great questions.
Thanks
great
to Dave for jumping in. That was lovely.
Yeah, always cool to see Dave. And we'll see you next week, guys. As I said, I'm hoping to get Shay from Monomyth on. He's kind of got a few things on next week. He's going to see if he can make it, and I'll certainly let you know if he can. And Warwick, I think you're going to be busy next week, you said.
Yes. So. Yeah. Next couple of weeks I'll be on the road. So
yeah, no sweat. Well, mate, we'll have you on again for sure.
Absolutely.
And everyone else, have a great Thursday evening if you're in the States. And for us Aussies down under, it's Friday.
Yeah. Happy hours now.
Yeah. Catch you guys.
Awesome. Take care.
Yeah.